Woo! Bada boom, realest guys in the room. How you doing?
When my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut.
Anybody want me to beat it?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
To be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo!
What is up, wrestling fans? It's me, S-T-U-B-B. Why? Because I'm the man, the myth, the legend, the mighty minion himself, Stubby. Wow. Coming to you, Kayfabe Studios, from places unknown. Gotta keep it real wrestling kayfabe, right? And I am joined by my colleague, my co-host, my confidant. He is the enigmatic, charismatic, Greek mystique, Savvo the Savior. What's up?
I don't even know what to say after that intro.
Well, I gotta hype you up.
What's up, everybody?
I gotta hype you up a little bit, right? I can't be the only one that has like a.
I'm in your tongue twister part.
Oh yeah, man, what an interesting week to start off for the week of what, April 16th, I think 15th, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 16th.
Some of the notable news, I guess we can talk about, is the fact that we had the Superstar Shakeup over these last 2 days, a two-parter.
Yeah, it turned out pretty good this time.
Takeaways, who do you think got the better end of the deal? I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Smackdown's got so much talent right now. Hopefully good things to come, yeah.
Do you think that's going to hurt them, that they're a 2-hour show with that much talent sitting on the roster?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I hope not.
Do you think maybe they're doing this as kind of like pulling the wool over our eyes, and some of these people may not stay on that roster after the shakeup or after the greatest Royal Rumble ever in history?
Where would they go? Back to Raw?
Well, I mean, you have people like Jinder Mahal versus Jeff Hardy in the rematch there in India. It's one of those feel-good stories where he can win it back and then essentially be right back on SmackDown unless he takes the title to Raw, and then Jeff Hardy's there with no title, and then Seth Rollins loses his title to somebody on SmackDown, so we just have a flip-flop with the titles.
Well, on another note, I mean, kind of related to that, the next lane coming up, it's co-branded, so maybe they'll have...
No, it's Backlash.
Whatever, that's my bad. They're co-branded, and maybe there'll be that title shot to go, so the title can go back to Raw or whatever, and the Intercontinental will go, to SmackDown or whatever. However they're going to play it out, we'll just have to wait and see. But
well, before we jump too far into actual stuff, why don't we talk about what actually happened on Raw and SmackDown? Starting with the show opener with Kurt Angle coming out and introducing that the Superstar Shakeup is going to happen tonight, and we get Sunil Singh that comes out and introduces Jinder Mahal. I mean, what is your take on Jinder Mahal coming to Raw? Me personally, I'm a Jinder fan. You already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, this is probably one of his best matches that he's had with Jeff.
Yeah, it was one of his better ones, for sure, yeah.
He definitely shined. But do you think, because he's on I wouldn't say depleted Raw roster, now that they've moved pretty much half the roster over to SmackDown, do you think he'll get the focus that he deserves, and do you think maybe he can actually withstand and not be a mid-carder?
I don't know, considering the fact that, what has it been, how long has he had, when did he first get the title?
Last
about a year now?
No, he got the title last week.
No, the SmackDown, I mean.
You mean the championship?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got about a year ago.
We'll say about a year. And this is like, to me, this is like the most he's shined. So, I don't know. I'm hoping that they'll find something for him. I mean, his title run, on SmackDown to me was kind of lackluster. But then again, he went against Orton for like 5 months or whatever it was, and I don't know. For some reason, I just didn't get over as it should have. But hopefully, this will work things out better for him.
What are your thoughts
Hopefully, no 3-man band.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, all 3 members are now officially on Raw.
Right.
And it makes me wonder if they're going to do a segment where they actually cross paths backstage, which would be kind of funny.
Yeah, and then they'll have Braun Simmons back there go, damn.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have Heath Slater preparing for a match, like, doing some curls with some weights, and both Jinder and Drew walk by, now that they're both jacked.
You're still the little guy, huh?
Yeah. What were your thoughts on the fact that Jeff Hardy immediately took the title from Jinder 1 week after?
I was gonna say, for them to come back, okay, they've been back for a year, I get it, but look at everybody else that's come back, like tag team wise, that you would think would end up going into the Hall of Fame. Well, I guess Goldberg too, but anyway, it just kind of a little bit shocked that they put the title on him. So not so fast, but that he got that opportunity basically.
Oh, but not any different than giving a 10-year-old a tag team title?
I don't want to talk about that because, let's talk about that. Not everybody, but there's a lot of tweets that I saw that people were praising how great that was. And me personally, I don't get I don't get why that would be great, but they all said that if you didn't like it, that means you're not a true fan. I kind of think the opposite. If you are a true fan, then you shouldn't have liked that. Because that's insulting everything about the business, everything about your intelligence, whatever. It's ridiculous, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's funny because initially when it happened, I was upset. But the longer that it resonated with me, the more accepting I was of it. For multiple reasons. One, it's WWE. They're World Wrestling Entertainment now. We have to get past the fact that they're not wrestling. They're wrestling adjacent. So the fact that we can't take them serious in any aspect, even when they try, there's always a hint of kayfabe behind it. And second of all, they're looking to transition the titles, and it's weird to say that it gives kids hope in the audience that they might randomly get picked. So it makes them more excited for the product from a 10-year-old's point of view, I guess.
And that was a referee's son, though.
Right.
Anyway.
But a 10, 12-year-old's not going to know that. They're not going to do the research for that. But I
would have enjoyed it better if it was that Jarius kid.
Well, I'm upset the fact that they hyped it up like it was going to be something spectacular, like it could have been a returning wrestler. And yeah, like you said, that the Jarius kid, whatever, from the Hall of Fame ceremony for the Warrior Award, that would have been perfect. Or even someone that Make-A-Wish.
Something.
Yeah, because at least that goes down in the history books. They do a good deed, and a kid lives a dream.
Right.
But this is just...
To me, it was no different than David Arquette getting the title.
Yeah.
There was no difference. And I tweeted, what's the difference? Blah, blah, blah. And somebody said, oh, because Braun can get anybody over. The kid didn't really get over. I mean...
You also got to remember...
like I said, I don't really... What?
You got to also remember who you're talking to. You're talking about marks that live in their mom's basement that are eating a Hot Pocket and... with one hand and typing with you on the other hand. I don't know.
To each their own. They can't please everybody.
Right. I mean, if we want to talk about, fluidity with storylines and making the product seem real, I mean, didn't we just have back in November the fact that Raw and SmackDown were going neck and neck with each other because of brand loyalty? And yet, when we get these transitions of people like Bobby Roode who come over and they're tagging with, people on the roster that he was attacking, it's amazing how quickly they got over it.
What, 4 months?
Yeah, and then you got Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who apparently were fired by Stephanie McMahon's brother. Kevin Owens got slapped by Stephanie back in November, and then, he damn near killed her brother, and she welcomes him open arms to Monday Night Raw. There's just no consistency in storyline.
Yeah, but if you're, I think when you're watching Raw or SmackDown or something, I think I know they're trying to build a following and get it, but I think it would make more sense if you viewed it as if this was the first time you ever saw wrestling.
Right. You don't
know no backstories. You're just seeing what they're showing.
Right. You know what's interesting too, because I remember, it was probably some months back. You were complaining that WWE was not giving, Impact wrestlers or WCW wrestlers a chance. And now you look at the influx of wrestlers that are now on the main roster. I mean, you got Bobby Roode, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Eric Young coming up. And I'm sure there's more. Bobby Lashley, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle spent more time in Impact than he did, or TNA, than he did on the WWE main roster. So, I mean, it's finally happening. You're getting your wish.
Honestly, I don't remember saying that, but yeah, that's cool. And the thing is the pop they're getting. So it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. Where you can say TNA is crap or Impact is crap, but then they come over there and you pop for them. Right. So what does that really mean?
All right, let's jump back into the Superstar Shakeup. What are your thoughts of the fact that the Riot Squad making their debut on Monday Night Raw?
I thought it was a good move. It kind of left me wondering what's going to happen with Absolution. But yeah, I think they got some talent there. Yeah.
Before
what were your thoughts?
Before we go any further, let's address the elephant in the room. What are your thoughts of the fact that Paige is the new GM for SmackDown, and that's exactly where Xavier Woods is at right now?
Oh boy, here we go. All of a sudden, he's going to be the champ.
Oh, and not to mention that we also got Carmella and Big Cass on the same show also.
Right, I noticed that. Yeah.
And you think this was intentional? Like there's some storylines that they can play off of this at some point in the future?
I don't think they're going to address anything about Xavier Woods, personally. But,
you don't think they'll do a WWE 24 special on that?
No. That's dirty laundry.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening, but hey, who knows?
I mean, Raw is supposed to be the better, more looked upon product, so it's only makes sense to bring the Riot Squad up because out of the two groups, they are the stronger group. Even though I don't,
you think so?
I don't quite understand what's going on with Sarah Logan, but they look like a more legitimate group because of the fact that Ruby Riott can talk.
Yeah, now they're down to 2 people instead of 3 too.
Right.
Absolution. I think if there's a weak link in the Riot Squad, it would be Liv Morgan.
Really?
I'm not saying she sucks or anything. I'm just saying I think she's the weaker of the 3.
I think she looks like half the roster, yeah, but out of the 2, Sarah Logan, for some reason, just doesn't... She doesn't quite convince me of her character. I don't even know what her character is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, what's Liv Morgan's character?
Pretty.
Okay, well, Sarah Logan's character is a country girl.
Yeah, I guess. All right, so with that said, what are your thoughts on the fact that The Miz being drafted over to SmackDown, and apparently Daniel Bryan still has pull, even though he's a full-time talent now. He can pick and choose who he wants to come over to the show.
Well, that's money right there. That's why, because they want to see Miz against Daniel Bryan. Most likely see Miz get his ass beat.
See, I'm glad to see Daniel Bryan come back because that was a feud that they built, 2 years ago almost, that legitimately had me wanting to see these two fight. And I don't know if it's the way that the Miz carried himself, because he has one of those faces you just want to punch, in Daniel Bryan's defense. But I'm not on the Daniel Bryan hype train, me personally. I like him. But the gimmick is what's ruining it for me. The whole yes, yes, yes thing.
It's too over, and when something gets too over, whether it be wrestling or music or whatever, movies, I tend to tune out. But yeah, I know he's a great talent, but yeah, the whole everybody popping yes, 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 it's getting old for me.
We can fast forward through some of this roster if you'd like. The fact that we got... I'm trying to look here to see who else. We got Breezango that came over. I'm sure you're looking forward to that, seeing that they're now going to be a main staple on the Raw brand.
Yeah, that was probably the worst pick that they've got.
I addressed it with you earlier today. It's pretty interesting. If you go back and watch Raw, pretty much every SmackDown transfer over that interacted with the wrestler on Raw brand is one of those that actually went over to the SmackDown brand the following night. Breezango approached Sheamus and Cesaro, and then Sheamus and Cesaro show up on SmackDown the following day. You had the Riot Squad attack Natalya, and Riot Squad shows up on SmackDown the following day. Wait, no. Did I say that backwards?
I'm trying to think who...
Sorry, Absolution.
Okay.
And see, that's another one I forgot to mention. It's sad, when I was watching Raw, I did not even realize that both Breezango and Natalya weren't already on the Raw brand. And that kind of takes away from the fact that, they've already acclimated. So is it really a shakeup, or is it just... normality?
Well, it's supposed to be a shake-up, but even then it's like, I don't know. It's not, they didn't leave a mark on where they were, Like Natty, I know she gets a lot of praise and this and that, but what's a good match she's been in?
Do you have some of the other names that came across? Because going through the notes just seems to take too long to make people relive the boring Raw that took place on Monday.
Yeah, I have them. Kevin Owens. Okay, we talked about Kevin and Sami.
See, I don't understand that either. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn supposedly were fired from SmackDown. They come on Raw the following week, and Kurt Angle addresses saying that he only has one roster spot because Nicholas took the other one apparently.
But now he's gone.
Right, and they had to battle to see who gets the spot. Neither guy won. So, in creative story writing, you would think they'd at least have them go back to NXT or work the indie scenes just for a week or two, just to make it believable that they were actually fired. But to have 19, I believe it was 18 or 19 wrestlers come over on the Raw brand. I was waiting to see what happened on SmackDown, but it looks like it balanced out when it comes to how many wrestlers transferred over. I don't know exactly how many. And I'm sure on the WWE website there were more names that were not announced on TV because there were 6 names that weren't announced on Raw that transferred over. But if you want to name off some of the names that came over to Raw, well, we'll address them one by one.
I only got the ones that they showed. Leaving off, we had Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre.
What do you think of that tag team? Do you think Dolph is going to be able to do something here, or do you think that Drew McIntyre can reignite Dolph Ziggler's career?
Yeah, I think if they stay a tag team, I think that's going to be a good one. It's going to be one to watch, yeah.
Yeah, I checked out some of the dirt sheets, and it is confirmed that they are going to be a tag team. I don't know if they have a tag team name set up, but they are scheduled to be a tag team.
Hmm. gonna. I think they're gonna shine. Yeah.
Do you think it's?
Well, it depends. Well, no, because you got people like the AOP, and I was gonna say the bar, but the bar's gone. I don't know. I think they're very talented individuals. Yes. I think they can go far. Yeah.
And see, that's the sad thing too, because Dolph Ziggler is a hell of a wrestler, and he's got a decent moveset and everything, and he sells his ass off, but he's just been in the company way too long. He's been overexposed. And I think something like what Drew McIntyre did and what Jinder Mahal did, a little time away, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the guy signed another 2-year contract, that means we got 2 more years of this guy reliving the same gimmick over and over and over again. Do you think Drew McIntyre, I mean, he was strong enough to carry the NXT Championship. Do you think he's strong enough to carry Dolph Ziggler at the same time?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I think so.
I guess it remains to be seen. Remains to be seen, yep.
Also, Baron Corbin was drafted to Raw. Because Raw is the more popular show, I think that's a good move for him. Because, I mean, he won the Andre the Giant thing a couple years back, whatever. He's gotten the push, but it's kind of not going anywhere on SmackDown. So I think trying it out on Raw is going to be good for him.
See, Baron Corbin to me strikes me as one of those guys, kind of like John Cena, where he has the look, and he has the moveset, and he has the personality, but it doesn't come across on the microphone until he gets angry. When he legitimately gets pissed off, you see, it's kind of like Bray Wyatt, you see a side of them where it's like, holy shit, don't mess with these guys type thing, but he comes off pretending to be a wrestler and not being a wrestler, if that makes sense. It's like
I know what you're saying, but I think with him, it's lack of experience.
Well, it's funny because I look at him and I think he has a better chance growth-wise and character-wise than someone like Big Cass, who they're very similar in character if you think about it.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the powerhouse, slow moveset, but devastating moveset type thing. But Baron Corbin has the look where Big Cass is just create a wrestler with long hair.
That's big.
Yeah.
7 feet tall, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You can't teach that.
That was good.
Yeah.
Another person drafted to Raw was Chad Gable.
And see, that was one of those that went under the wire, which blows my mind that they announced that Zack Ryder, Mojo Rawley, The Ascension, Mike Kanellis, and Chad Gable were coming over via WWE.com and Instagram or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know where this leads Chad Gable with the fact that Jason Jordan should be coming back soon. Do we see the reuniting of American Alphas?
I think we might see a rivalry there when he comes back.
Well, it's just interesting because I just recently changed the intro to our show, getting rid of the American Alphas theme song, and here we are with the possibility that it might come back.
Well, we can always bring it back.
You know what's sad too is I looked at some of the names that they didn't announce that were on WWE.com, and I didn't know Mike Kanellis or Ascension still had a job, to be honest with you.
So they're on Raw now?
Yeah, which they're going to be mid-card filler, jobbers for people like Jinder Mahal to squash to make it look like he's more relevant than he is. Which is not a bad thing. I mean, I would love to say that I'm a jobber for WWE. If the pay is right, I mean, you get the fame and the money and the touring and everything. There's no shame in that.
Right. I guess I just realized I don't have on my list Bobby Roode, who got drafted to Raw.
That one was kind of depressing, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just they hyped up that this mystery opponent for the main event was going to be something great. And Bobby Roode to me, doesn't seem like he strikes that level quite yet. And
honestly, okay.
I blame WWE for it because that glorious theme song is the only thing that they're making him over with, kind of like the Shinsuke Nakamura.
Honestly, that's another thing that I'm mixed emotions with. I like Bobby Roode. I liked his It Factor persona in Impact, TNA, whatever you want to call it. But the glorious thing to me, it's just not there for me. It's too much fluff. Number one, it's a Ric Flair kind of rip off, but that's not why I don't like it. It's just too much fluff. So kind of like the Nakamura and all the. He's a great talent. They're both great talents, and they're both on my favorites list. We'll say current talent, but it's like an entrance shouldn't be what makes you, and that's what I think they've done with them.
Well, that's just it. When you look at it, a clear-cut line has been drawn between Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. Monday Night Raw is your entertainment show. SmackDown is your wrestling show.
Correct.
Except for this past Tuesday, where obviously they were just trying to bring people out to show the surprise shakeup.
Right. Exactly.
But if anyone has a chance to survive when it comes to an entrant, it's going to be Bobby Roode on Monday Night Raw. I think eventually we are going to see him shed away that character, especially if he goes heel. Because for one, it's too long of an entrance. The song is still over, very, very much over. And the guy can wrestle. He falls in that category. Like if I were to have to do your top tier, your mid card, and your bottom dwellers, he has top tier talent, but he's in the Dolph Ziggler mid card range for some reason. And
I think it's just timing. He hasn't been there long enough. Maybe, I don't know.
I hope so.
I know if James Storm comes back and they get those two together, whether they're together or against each other, then that's going to pop big time.
Just pay close attention to his promos, because the second he says he has the it factor, you know it's coming.
Right.
All
Can't
right.
wait for that.
So, does that cover pretty much everything on Monday Night Raw?
Mm-hmm.
Any key standouts on that show that you really liked? I like the fact that Jinder's on that brand now, and I think he had a good showing with Jeff Hardy, which was clearly a test run to see what they're going to see at the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. Which I want to touch on that after we cover the SmackDown side of it.
Did you happen to see what time that the greatest Battle Royal starts?
Yeah, it's going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I know. What the hell is that?
Well, at least we know now that it's pretty much going to be spoilers if you go anywhere on the internet at that point. So by the time I get home by the time I get home at 3 o'clock, it'll probably just be ending, right?
We should just have like a slumber party. Stay up all night.
You know what? Before we jump into SmackDown, let's talk about that. So the greatest Royal Rumble of all time is taking place in Saudi Arabia, a country where women are looked as second-class citizens or as currency. Like an item. Correct?
Property.
Right, so now you've got WWE, who is really, really promoting this women's revolution that is having an all-male show in Saudi Arabia. I don't understand the logic behind that.
There's no women.
No women at all. It's not allowed.
Really?
Right, and the interesting about this too is Finn Balor's been wearing these colors lately. Supporting LGBTQRSTUV, and they frown upon.
Get shut down.
Right, they frown upon homosexuality and stuff over in Saudi Arabia also. So I'm curious to see if Finn Balor comes in his plain gear, or if he still truly supports, like he says, where everyone's welcome. If not, then
have you seen him actually wearing the shirt on Raw?
No, we saw it at WrestleMania, and then we saw he's wearing blue, which is also representation in a more subtle way.
And did you catch, what was it, Coach said, oh, he's wearing blue today, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Grace was like, he's been wearing blue.
Yeah, that's another thing about that commentary. We'll get into that too. It's just interesting because this is obviously a money grab for WWE, which more power to them. Someone's
That's all it is, but yeah.
Someone's paying big money because WWE didn't go searching for this. Someone searched them.
Do you think that Rusev and Undertaker really need to have a casket match?
No, that's what I was going to say is the fact that this is taking place in Saudi Arabia. I'm thinking someone royalty-wise over there wanted WWE to perform and told them to bring everybody. You know, I mean, a 50-man roster, you're going to have to pull from Raw and SmackDown, obviously.
Oh, yeah, probably even some NXT.
And then if you look at it, there are 7 titles on the line at this show. Pretty much every title that's male-driven. So you got the SmackDown, the Raw tag team titles. You got the Universal, the World title. You've got the Cruiserweight title and the U.S. title. And the IC title. So...
And you're sure there's no women going to be there?
It's not allowed. 100% not allowed.
Wow.
So with that said, we're talking a guaranteed 7 matches just for the titles, a 50-man Royal Rumble, which you have to assume, even if every guy got eliminated 1 minute apart, we're looking at an hour show on that. You have the John Cena versus Triple H match. And then you have the casket match with Rusev and Undertaker. What are your thoughts, the fact that Triple H and John Cena are going to be wrestling at this thing, first off?
Honestly, I have no thoughts on that. It's just like Triple H has to get his hands on everything, get into everything. Again, it goes back to what we said earlier. It's just a money thing, probably. I mean, obviously, there's no heat between the two of them at this point, really. It's just because, Saudi Arabia, they want it to be a big thing, and that's what they're doing.
I mean, that's proof right there. The fact that they're doing this supposed unlabeled pay-per-view with no storyline build-ups. So it's obviously a money grab.
I don't have a problem with it. It's just kind of odd, is all I'm saying.
The problem I have is the fact that we're going to see Undertaker versus Rusev, where... For the last, 2 months, we had John Cena coming on saying that he has no way of being part of WrestleMania. And he's calling out The Undertaker, who's not responding. And we had this draw out for so many weeks. And it comes to a head at WrestleMania, where Undertaker comes out for 3 minutes and squashes John Cena. Now, 2 weeks later, we're talking 2 weeks removed, Undertaker is now headlining against Rusev in a casket match in Saudi Arabia, unprompted. Like, there's no hesitation on that.
They haven't even shown Taker since Mania, right?
Right, but the consistency and storyline just blows my mind how they just expect us to, like, it never happened type thing.
Again, it's just a money thing, man. That's all it is. It is a business, but that's what it's all about.
And Samoa Joe came over on Smackdown talking about how SmackDown's supposed to be the land of opportunity, and he called it the land of handouts.
Yeah.
He actually couldn't be further from the truth because, like I was telling you yesterday, if you're a champion on SmackDown and you lose your title, you don't get a rematch. You actually have...
Randy Orton.
Yeah, you had to refight. Randy Orton had to still had to fight again to see the number one contender, and Jinder won it.
I was referring to the title that Jinder took or got.
And then WWE had the, the inability to remember the storylines. So you've got this build-up for this tag team tournament leading into the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. I think I have to say it. I'm obligated to say it every single time, right? That it's the greatest Royal Rumble of all time.
Or the show in Saudi Arabia, whatever.
Right. So you had Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt win this tag tournament that's been going on for like the last 3 weeks, right? To face off against the Bar at this pay-per-view. Well, now having the Bar on SmackDown, WWE's pretty much did what they did with Asuka, saying Asuka's streak, she's at risk of losing her streak during this mixed match challenge. Well, obviously she's not going to lose her streak during a C show at best that's on Facebook Live. So we already knew ahead of time that Asuka and Miz were going to win the tournament. Well, now you got Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy on Raw competing for the Raw Tag Team titles when the other team is on SmackDown. It's obvious that the Raw Tag Team titles are staying on Raw, and that's going to be Matt and Bray.
Right. See, but I think the problem there is we're not supposed to look at it like that.
Well, if they keep this up, nobody's going to look at it at all. Just saying.
I don't think they're worried about it at this point, but we'll see.
So should we jump into the SmackDown?
Yeah. Starting off, we had Miz come over from Raw, which we knew the night before.
Right, which is I love his promo where it looked like he was doing a little cell phone video, and it looked like he was preparing to come out, and he's like, "Nope, I'm in LA." And he's smart for doing that because with all the names that came over last night, he would just get buried underneath all those names, and the fact that he's doing his own little segment the following week just it showcases him, it spotlights him.
Oh, I thought he wrestled the night before. But after that, we have Jeff Hardy, which we somewhat talked about already, winning the United States Championship.
And it's funny with him because we knew ahead of time one of the two were coming over, whether it be Jeff Hardy or it be Seth Rollins. And I was more convinced that Seth Rollins was coming over because I think that there's more competition for him on SmackDown. But it's also smart to bring Jeff over to get him away from Matt because Matt and Bray got their own little gimmick going right now.
Yeah, but in my head, I didn't know what they were going to do because I kind of figured Seth would be going to SmackDown, either Seth or Finn Balor. I didn't really think of Jeff Hardy going because I thought maybe that he'd end up becoming Brother Nero, and he'd be like they'd be a threesome.
Well, if you want to get technical, it can still happen at any time because technically, doesn't Matt Hardy have the ability to teleport? So he can teleport himself onto SmackDown, grab Jeff, and bring him back to Raw.
Anything can happen in the WWE.
I mean, that's coming from the hopeful writer side of me. I almost think that we should have our own little fan fiction type stuff because some of the matches and some of the storylines they build now are bullshit.
I know. You should write in storylines. Send it to them. Next up, we had Absolution coming over to SmackDown Live,
and that one's
which I wasn't surprised by that, but I think it's a good call.
Right. I mean, you kind of have to because you can't have two of the same sitting on the same roster. It is interesting to see how they're going to do that, though, with Paige being the GM. Are we going to get the whole Jason Jordan angle where they feel entitled because they were managed or they were associated with the manager?
Right, exactly. Be interesting to see, yeah. Samoa Joe, which again we already talked a little bit about.
That was probably the biggest shock. That was probably the biggest shocker out of all of them.
Yeah, really, yeah. That's gonna be. I'd like to see Samoa Joe against Nakamura. That'd be a good one.
Well, there's so many good matches.
Styles, yeah.
Yeah, you got him versus AJ Styles, which is a throwback to Impact TNA. You got him versus Daniel Bryan, which I'm sure they've met on the indie scene before.
Probably like a Ring of Honor thing, yeah.
Right, and then there's Killian Dane's coming over to SmackDown, which is going to be interesting too to see him as part of Sanity.
Yeah,
a natural big guy. So I mean, whenever you messaged last night and said Joe versus Nakamura, and I put Joe versus the World, I pretty much like to see him wrestle everybody.
I just had a thought. Sanity against the New Day against the Bludgeon Brothers with another partner. That'd be a hell of a match.
There's a lot of possibilities. That's why when I watched SmackDown last night, I was really excited to see all the talent that they're bringing over. But I was also a little pessimistic because that's a lot of people that are, potentially A-carders on a 2-hour show. But even though we had the draft, it's not to say that WWE cannot pick up people from the NXT roster to Monday Night Raw at any given time.
Right, exactly.
And they may have to pull from that talent pool at some point. I mean, there are still plenty of people on the NXT roster right now that are more than ready to come up. It's just, do they deplete the roster to appease the TV audience, or do they let them build up the necessary character? And I mean, part of me is like, let them build up their character and everything on NXT, but WWE just washes that when they come over anyway, so I don't know if that really makes a difference.
Yeah, sometimes they just totally, like Ty Dillinger, he got lost. I think, they screwed up with him. I still think they screwed it up with Bayley. Well, actually, they've been popping for Bayley because, she's been getting in some beatdowns on Sasha, but I think they dropped the ball with her when she had her title run.
Yeah,
It just wasn't. Did you see her screw ups on her moves?
I see him every week.
No, but this one was like major when she slipped off the rope.
No, I think I honestly I think I went to use the bathroom at that point, because when it comes to Bayley, I think she either needs to turn heel or she needs to move over to SmackDown, and I'm actually shocked that she didn't go to SmackDown last night.
I'd love a heel turn for her. That I think I would really start to appreciate her.
I caught the ending of that, and she actually looked like she had a little bit of fire underneath her belly whenever her and Sasha were going at it.
Right.
And I thought we might see something, but it's just more of the same, and it's repetitive and nauseating.
She actually screwed up like twice in that one match. She went to do a move off the ropes and she kind of slipped, and there was something else I can't remember.
I mean, honestly, if you look at Sasha Banks, she doesn't connect with half her punches or her kicks either. So it's like, it was just, they need to be separated. There's no story here that draws anybody's interest, and I don't know why they continue to try to push for it.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I like to see one big, battle between the two of them, and I'd like to see, if done right, I'd like to see Bayley on top.
Giggity.
Another new SmackDown talent, Big Cass. It was kind of cool seeing that he's back. I don't know, him against Daniel Bryan, that's going to be kind of weird. I mean, two completely different styles.
Right, and when I see that, I don't know if Daniel Bryan, even though he has the star power, I don't think he has enough to bring out something great in Cass. I think Cass looks more like that bodyguard type and not really a draw. And that's just my opinion. I mean, you do forget how tall he is when he's standing next to Daniel Bryan.
But did you see? He didn't seem that short next to him.
Are you kidding me? He was at just barely above his belly button, it seemed like.
Oh, stop. He was up to his chin.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
I was tripping off of that, yes.
No, he's right, if anything, mid-chest.
Maybe he was, I don't know, but when he showed up during Daniel Bryan's interview, he was no more than a foot taller.
No way. I'll send you.
I know what you're saying, but during the interview is what I'm talking about. Specifically,
I'll send you a screen cap.
If he was standing on something and they weren't showing it, that's one thing. But I was looking at that, and it's just like his head was up to right to his chin area, throat.
No way.
I know Daniel Bryan looks like a small guy. I know.
You know, I had to say, out of all the backstage promos, I like when New Day. I mean, if you get past the annoying part, when they're like the Immortal One, and the camera pans over, and you're thinking it's going to be Hogan, and it's R-Truth. And R-Truth still has it, man. He still makes me laugh. He's doing that exchange with Ty Dillinger, and then they're like, he says, welcome to Monday Night Raw, and they're like, today's Tuesday? he said, this is Smackdown, and he's like, okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then walks away. Like he didn't
I wonder what happened to Jimmy.
Like he didn't grasp the concept that today is Tuesday, it's Smackdown, and you think he's at Monday Night Raw, so he's like, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's like, that's classic. And he the way he sells it, it's like he really believes it, which is great.
Can you believe he was like a major badass champ in TNA when it first, like around the time it first started?
Oh, absolutely. This guy has an indie pedigree.
Yeah, but it's like they didn't do nothing with him in WWE.
Well, it's because he actually has personality. That's why him and Goldust get over, because they can actually make people laugh. If anything, I think they're more of a superstar than anything else, because they both can wrestle, but they have the it factor too to make you laugh. I mean, he got a fucking invisible kid over for the longest time.
Are you referring to Little Jimmy?
Oh yeah. I mean, Little Jimmy should have been Braun Strowman's tag team partner.
I mean, right, totally.
Man.
David Arquette should have been his partner.
So what are you? How do you feel about the Perfect Truth being a tag team? I like that pause.
No comment, really. I mean, to me I haven't seen enough of Ty Dillinger, to be honest. I haven't really. He hasn't done anything on the main roster to impress me, and I haven't seen him in NXT, so I can't really comment.
Right, more reason to get both him and R-Truth back on TV, even if it's in a gimmicky tag team. I mean, they can't be any worse than Fandango. Both these guys can actually wrestle.
Right.
And then SmackDown can also, thrive with more tag teams. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
Right. One match I did like on SmackDown was Shelton Benjamin against Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, what'd you think about Shelton?
That was pretty good.
What'd you think about Shelton Benjamin's promo? He seemed a little nervous with his lines, but I mean,
yeah.
he caught it real quick.
Right.
But it's just weird to see him go from babyface last week to immediately a heel with no warning. Kind of like how Natty goes to Raw and all of a sudden she's a babyface.
I know, in SmackDown everybody hated her.
We didn't even touch on it, but how do you feel about Natty being Ronda Rousey's first official opponent, like real match singles opponent?
I hope Rousey destroys her.
Well, it's funny because Natty was the one that actually helped train her. So it's only fitting that these two go head to head, because I think Natty can carry most of that match. And then you can also squash Natty and it not really hurt Natalya at this point. So I think it's a good build.
Yep.
Who else is left on the Shakeup?
That I have Asuka. Actually, I wasn't really surprised that she came over, because she did battle Charlotte at Mania. It just kind of made sense that she'd be coming over, which I think is a good idea.
It is. I think it strengthens. It surprises me too, because SmackDown last year had a very depleted women's division, and I actually think that they have a nice little build-up this time around.
Yeah, it's definitely improved. That's for damn sure. Oh yeah, another addition to SmackDown Live, the Club, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson.
And I get that they were on like a time constraint, but it seemed like some of these people were not really, in their eyes, big transitions, because they got like a graphic, is all they got. And I get, some of these people are already over in India for this Super Show, whatever you want to call it, the greatest Royal Rumble in history. But I think there's a lot of potential with Gallows and Anderson coming over. I think we got the whole AJ Styles side. We got them teaming up with Samoa Joe in some kind of weird way, or even teaming up with Nakamura. Some like extended Bullet Club type thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see them with AJ. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think they came over to when they came over to Raw. I don't think they knew what to do with them. I don't know, but everything that they what's the word, that they garnered, all the publicity, whatever that they garnered, whatever, they just kind of fizzled out. All the heat they came up with just kind of fizzled out over on Raw. So I think a nice little change for them being on SmackDown. Yeah.
You want to hear something interesting about them?
What?
Did you know that they still have 1 year left on their contract, both Gallows and Anderson, and that they have a $750,000 guaranteed downside on their contract? And essentially what that was is that they are guaranteed the same amount that AJ Styles is guaranteed. Which is, you look at the two, or the three of them, who's on top and who's a mid-card or even a bottom card at this point. And before the merchandise sales and the all the lucrative deals and stuff on the side, they essentially make the same amount of money. Yeah.
Gallows definitely should get a decrease in pay.
Gallows needs to...
I don't know. I think he's just a big guy, and there's nothing more to him than that, really.
I think Gallows needs to fall into the lake of reincarnation and come back as Festus.
No.
just for an episode.
God. That would...
Or you know what they should do? Matt Hardy should get a glass or like a pitcher of water from the lake of reincarnation and splash it on Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal, and Drew McIntyre, and go back to these, like, all these guys that came back reinvented, bring them back to their old gimmicks. I mean, you can do Bobby Roode and turn him into the It Factor.
You could, but that was never a part of WWE. But yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Or put it on Goldust and he'll come back as the Natural.
Yeah, or Seven.
Did that even last other than one pay-per-view where he came out for an interview?
I don't know, but if I were to become an indie wrestler, I would like the name Seven, but the fact that he did it and it was out there, it's kind of like you can't do it now.
Do it in Roman numerals.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and then we had Sanity's on SmackDown Live. Another talent from NXT.
Right.
Pretty excited about that. Finally, we get to see Eric Young on the main roster. Gideon Dane is pretty badass too. I really like that guy. And what's the other guy's name? Wolf?
Yeah, he kind of looks like Beaker from the Muppets.
Who's this, Wolf?
Yeah, Alexander Wolf. I'm actually excited about this tag team because, one, it keeps Eric Young from getting stuck with 205 Live, and there's just so much potential with the fact that they're a three-man faction.
What do you mean by that? You mean NXT?
No, 205 Live. He's a small guy. And 205 Live is where you go to end your career, pretty much.
To end it?
Yeah. I mean, can you really name one person on 205 Live right now that you can see actually getting out of 205 Live and eventually coming over to the main roster?
What?
Can you see anybody on the 205 Live roster that would ever have potential to be coming over to the main roster on Raw or SmackDown? Exactly.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. What separates, okay, who's the best guy in 205 Live?
The top guys, in my opinion, are going to be Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali, and Drew Gulak. But
okay, what makes the guys like that much worse than like Daniel Bryan?
the fact that there is no storyline put behind their character, and that they're given an hour to do this right after a 2-hour show on Smackdown, where the main event is at the end of the show, and that whole 2 hours are building up to this main event, and then you go right back to a show opener of 205 Live, where two guys are wrestling that have no storyline behind them and no reason to get invested in the match. Are you still there?
Well, if that's the case, then they should get rid of 205 Live and come.
Are you there? Are you there?
Because no matter what size you are, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop out for a quick second.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop out for a quick second and bring you back. Sorry about that, people. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back. What were we talking about? 205 Live?
I think they should get rid of the 205 Live brand and just combine it with NXT. If that's, you're saying something about there's no storylines really, there's no oomph to it. Combine it with NXT. I mean, you got some small guys in there too.
I wouldn't take away from NXT. Honestly, I would combine it with SmackDown, make SmackDown a 3-hour show, and just interweave 205 in between that. I mean, because there are people like Daniel Bryan who is in that weight class that can easily maneuver in between these 205 guys and have a pretty strong match, in my opinion.
Yeah, but in another sense, it's also like, why do they need a weight class? I mean, I understand why they need one, but you're only going to see how good you really are if you go up against, other people, not the same size.
Right, but if you don't have a weight class, then you have someone like James Ellsworth fighting someone like Braun Strowman.
Okay, he's going to lose.
Well, speaking of, are you surprised? Does it surprise you at all the fact that Charlotte referenced the no chin freak, and that James Ellsworth was completely edited out of that video package?
No, I didn't realize it.
Like, they completely... So I guess there's no chance of him coming back, or at least not in the near future. They want to make it look like that Carmella pretty much did this on her own. Revisionist history, I guess, right?
Right. That's another thing we haven't talked about. What do you think about her cashing it in, the way it went down?
I think it's probably the best way they could have done it, to be honest with you. You don't want to, salter Asuka's streak by having Carmella beat her. You might as well have someone that was valid that can actually beat her. And then on the end, or the side of on the side of history, you don't want her to cash in at WrestleMania either, because if Charlotte would have lost at WrestleMania, when you go back to recap next year's WrestleMania when it's Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey, you want both parties to have been winners at the previous WrestleMania, with Charlotte and Ronda both winning. So to have her do it on SmackDown, it made sense, and the way she did it, it doesn't make Charlotte look weak. It makes Carmella like a chicken shit heel, which is perfect.
But do you think she's all that?
No, not at all. I think she comes off...
Not even close, right?
No, she comes off like a true heel, like someone that you really dislike. She's not bad at wrestling. She's really annoying on the mic, and that's really what her character is.
Mella's money, baby.
Right, Mella's money.
Anything you want to discuss about WrestleMania that we haven't discussed?
No, but I do want to talk about the Nikki Bella and John Cena saga. And, you and I touched on it briefly with the fact that they were actually scheduled to get married on May 5th in Mexico. And this was a year-long engagement that was publicly put on display at WrestleMania the previous year. if you know the history of John Cena and Nikki Bella, you know that John Cena has been a advocate for not getting married and not having children. And for not having children, I get his view on that simply because, one, he's an entertainer who's on the road all the time, along with his, presumably to be his wife, as of 2 or 3 days ago. So, like, they can't invest the amount of time and energy that it would take to actually raise and love a child. And at the same time, John Cena's around sick kids all the time with Make-A-Wish, and he's constantly having to be exposed to kids on their deathbed. So having a constant reminder of death when it comes to children probably is not something that he wants in his psyche when it comes to his everyday life. So I get that aspect. And then he also came off a very, very disgusting, dirty divorce with his ex-wife. And I'm pretty sure that burned him pretty well, and I don't think he wants to do that again. And it looks like from the fact that they broke up, he made the right decision. Because if it's that easy to separate, then maybe that wasn't the foundation you need for a marriage. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's kind of messed up, but I get it. You know, I mean, yeah, he didn't want to have kids, but there's a lot of people that don't have kids. But yeah, he didn't want to get married. But then, why did he propose to her? Was it merely for a WrestleMania moment type thing? Was it he had intentions of doing it and just I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, I know he didn't want to get married originally. I know that. Everybody probably knows that. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know more to say about it. I mean, we all know what we know, and it's all basically the same.
I think we'll know and give a month or two's time, because if this becomes a storyline on Total Bellas or whatever, Total Divas, then we know this was a work. This was something just to bring drama to the show. But to make it public notice like that, you can tell it was a part of business, the business aspect of it. Both Vince McMahon and John Cena and Nikki probably all saw dollar signs in that aspect. And I think it gave John a year to decide whether or not he actually wanted to go through with it. I think his heart wasn't fully in it, but he wanted to make her happy. But as it got closer to the time, he's realizing this is not something that he wants to force, because then he's going down that road again with the potential divorce later on. What I don't understand is, when it comes to relationships, does it really have to be all or nothing? If marriage is not on the table, you have to separate?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing. Some people have to have the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and apparently this was that situation. So, if you think you're able to go through the rest of your life with that person and never marry them or never have kids, well, you want both, then it's all up to the individual, really.
Right, but if you're 100...
you got to consider that stuff.
If you're truly in love with the person, though, and you say this person makes you happy, are you willing to move on for the potential to get married and to have kids with someone that may not be the same level of love that you had for the person in the first place? You're willing to throw it all away and then just temporarily lose a little bit of happiness? It baffles me that you go from one extreme to the other. If you're not married or not having kids, then we can't be together type thing.
Everybody's different. I don't know. They know what they want, and apparently it wasn't that.
We got maybe like another couple minutes left in the show. Did you want to touch at all on the fact of the passing of one Bruno Sammartino today?
Yeah, Bruno excuse me, Bruno Sammartino passed away, what was it, yesterday or today? At the age of 82.
82, yeah.
I didn't read if there was any specific what the specific cause was. But yeah, I mean, he was the WWF champion for like 7.5 years. Back in, what was it, the 60s or somewhere in that time frame.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, I never was a big Bruno fan, but just because it wasn't my era. But yeah, it's definitely a loss to the wrestling community and the world.
I'm pretty sure, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, wasn't he inducted in the Hall of Fame the year that we went to WrestleMania for WrestleMania 31?
It was around there, yeah. I get them mixed up, actually, but yeah, it was around there.
I mean, luckily he got in before his passing, so, you know, the acknowledgement was there. He got to feel the appreciation, the fan support of all the fans in the WWE universe. 82 years is not young, so, I mean, he definitely lived a long life. And as you get older, I'm sure it especially as a wrestler, it couldn't have been the most pleasing life when it comes to pain and whatnot. Speaking of jumping up back into storylines, did you hear about Jerry Lawler on March 21st?
No.
I
don't know.
Yeah, apparently he had a stroke while having sex with his 29-year-old fiance. And there was fear that he actually could possibly lose speech because for 4 days, or 3 or 4 days in that time period, he actually could not put together sentences. He couldn't remember his name. He couldn't remember who was president. And then he woke up one morning right before WrestleMania, and it all came back to him.
Wow.
But I mean, if you're gonna
actually, now think about it, I did hear he had a heart attack, but I didn't read the details.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have a stroke, might as well be during sex, right?
Go out with a bang, I guess. Yeah.
Giggity, and then definitely, literally, a bang. But any last words before we?
Did it report? Did it report if he finished?
It's funny the way I'm wrapping up the show. Any last words before we get out of here?
Yeah, there's one more thing we'll go over real quick. We were talking the other day about the Impact pay-per-view coming up, Impact Redemption.
Right.
I just got a list here of the matches. We'll run those down here. We got for the Knockouts Championship, Ali versus Su Yung.
Su Yung is
6-man.
Su Yung is
What's that?
I'm trying to think of what his name is. Su Yung is
the sister Abigail.
Right, but she's the wife to the guy that was in 205 Live. Rich Swann. She is the one that essentially cost. She's the one that essentially cost Rich Swann his job. Filing the report.
Oh, really?
Yeah, filing the report of spousal abuse, and he was suspended. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then he was reinstated, but I think he was getting bad press, so he decided to cut ties with WWE. But you said Su Yung versus Ali?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And then there's a 6-man match between Ishimori, who's pretty badass, Asian guy, obviously, by the name. But yeah, he's pretty damn good. There's Desmond Xavier, who's also pretty damn good. There's DJZ is coming back. He had that. Have you heard about DJZ?
No.
He had like a really bad injury. Like he ripped. Damn, it's been so long now. He like ripped his. I don't know, like something in his groin area through his butt or something like that. Something pretty serious.
Great reporting.
But he's now back in action. But
great reporting. He's like he ripped something. Yeah,
I just took down the card, man, because because of all you Impact haters. Brian Cage is going to be in it. Who's God? This is like Papa Pump all over again, but probably a little bit more brutal. Trevor Lee's going to be in it, and a guy. It's a luchador named El Hijo de Fantasma.
Yeah, he's
So that looks like it's going to be a pretty good one.
I think he's from Era Lucha.
What's that?
I think he's from Era Lucha.
I thought he was from Mexico.
El Hijo de Fantasma?
I thought he was from Mexico.
Yeah, I got it the first time. It wasn't funny that time either.
Whatever, dude. I get his Impact Championship match. Austin Aries against Pentagon against Phoenix.
Yeah, I would think you'd be more hyped up.
Once again.
I thought you'd be more hyped up with this.
What's that?
Oh my god, we got a delay again apparently on our feed. I said I thought you'd be more excited the fact that Impact Wrestling signed Pentagon and Phoenix to their roster. That's a big signing.
I can't really be excited about somebody that I don't really know anything about.
You should do some research and watch some videos, man. Good guys.
Do you know about them?
Not a thing.
Okay. Moving on. We got Matt Sydal versus P.D. Williams for the X Division Championship, which should be another good one. And for the Tag Team Championships, we got Eli Drake and Big Papa Pump versus LAX.
Ooh, yuck.
What?
Said, ew, yuck.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
See, another hater. Anyway. The last match, the House of Hardcore match. Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Tommy Dreamer versus OVE. So that one should be a slobber knocker.
Now, this is, the pay-per-view is called Retribution, correct? Redemption. And, where is this at, and when is it at?
Who the fuck cares? It's on pay-per-view. If you have it, watch it. I don't know.
I honestly thought you were going to pull a babyface move and say, who the fuck cares? It's Impact Wrestling.
See, that wasn't funny, dude.
It is hilarious. All right, man. We should wrap this up because I think we've already gone over an hour and a half. So, as usual, it's me, STUBB. Why? Because the man, the myth, the legend, the mighty man himself, Stubby. Blah, 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 blah.
Until next time. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And wrestling is real. People are fake. Stubby out.